Ready? 3, 2, 1.
What's up, guys? This is Moneyball episode 10. If you don't get it right now, it's vlogception. So yesterday, me and Ryan, we went to the Charlotte Sports Card Show. We made some cool pickups. We went to trade night. We got a cool story with that. If you want to see like the details of some of the transactions of the card show, go check out Breakout Cards. He's going to have video recording of him doing deals. You might see me if you want to play Where's Waldo. You can play Where's Jordan. You might see me in the background. But Ryan, what did you pick up yesterday?
Yeah, so two of my favorite pickups from yesterday. First, a second-year Clemente. So put this on over here, and you guys can see as well in the breakout vlog. But really cool card on this one. I picked it up for like $150 in general, and I think it was a great steal for a second year. And then a card I picked up using some of the data I got in the Moneyball card episode was this triple. It had Favre, LOA, and Dan Marino. Look at those patches on this one. This is numbered to 5. And I was making a deal with someone and talking about how the World Series adds about a 30% value to cards because there's no comps since the Braves won the World Series. So I got the 30% value added on top of a card I was trying to move, and was able to leverage a trade, which this was the main piece in that. So I was pretty excited to use one channel's information and then implement it towards the card show vlog.
Basically, he finessed the guy. He just started spitting out numbers, and the guy just started nodding his head. It was like, okay, sure, I'll give you the 30% if you say so. Yeah, I believe you. But at the card show, I picked up a bunch of Cleveland cards. These probably aren't worth too much, but it's just a bunch of old Cleveland cards, and for me, I'm just gonna put it in my PC, and I don't have too many like old Browns cards unless my dad gave them to me. So these are officially mine. I also got a Bernie Kozar rookie card. And if you guys don't know who Bernie Kozar is, he was basically the quarterback the Browns fans always talked about. That's Cleveland fans' favorite quarterback because he got us to the AFC Championship game, and they've never been to the Super Bowl. And he went to the AFC Championship game 3 times. Got a random Star Wars card for $1. It's got like a memorabilia emblem, which pretty cool. And some UFC cards of Islam Makhachev. I got 8 of these. Got them for $1.50 a piece. These sell for $20 a piece on eBay. So I guess the guy just didn't really know that this Islam had a good weekend last weekend, and he didn't bump up the price. He was a really nice guy anyway. So I'll either get those graded based off what they look like, or I'll sell them. But the big story from yesterday, I don't know if it's a big story yet or not. Is we went to trade night. I sold 2 cards. I got over $400 cash. It was fun negotiating and people trying to trade, but it was easy just to make cash transactions. But they did raffles, and I won a raffle for Chronicles NBA 2021. I tried to sell it. I put it down next to my cards. I tried to sell it for $30, what other people were selling them for. No one wanted to buy it. A little kid walked by and said, "Hey, are you going to open that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm trying to sell it." And I was going to give it to him for free, but I decided not to. So I wasn't. My heart wasn't all the way there, to just give it away. So later we got back, and I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna open this thing. And I open it. I didn't know it had autographs in it, and I'm going through, I see some good rookies, and I see Redemption, and I'm like, okay, this does have autographs in it. And I'm like, well, who could this be? Who does redemptions? Redemptions normally guys they're normally bigger names, because the guys who just don't want to sign right away. And I flip it over, I see Jalen Green, who's the top prospect. So then I look and I see the color on it, and it says Mosaic Scripts Autographs Black. And I'm thinking right away, okay, black is 1 of 1. It's always been 1 of 1. And we're both freaking out, like, no way. There's no way we got 1 of 1 of like the guy from just a random raffle of a box I was going to give away. That was fun. But we've been doing research on Buster Posey and if he should be in the Hall of Fame or not, comparing to other catchers who are in the Hall of Fame. So Buster Posey just retired, and we're going to see if you should be buying his cards over the next 5 years for that extra Hall of Fame bump.
All right, so today I'm going to be taking a look at Buster Posey, whether he should make the Hall of Fame or not. When he retired about a week ago, tons of people on Twitter reacted to it. I saw people that were saying Buster Posey should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. No doubt. Those 3 World Series championships, he's going to a lock in the Hall of Fame. And I see other people as well that say Buster Posey should not be in the Hall of Fame. He's above average player, but just really doesn't meet the Hall of Fame requirements. And then I just see people out there like, who is Buster Posey? So we're going to be looking at if he should actually be in the Hall of Fame or not from the advanced stat perspective, really breaking down his whole profile as a catcher. And then you guys can make the analysis at the very end. And I'll also say what I personally believe is going to happen. So first off, if you don't know who Buster Posey is, for the San Fransisco Giants, he played during their dynasty where they won 3 World Series championships from 2010 to 2016. He was a player behind the plate as the catcher, and he was pretty much the most significant player on that team. There's another player as well, Bumgarner. Both of them won 3 rings with them, but Posey had the better career. So people kind of viewed Posey as the face of the Giants. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on with this analysis. So Posey was a rookie technically in 2009 when he got his first cup of tea. Rookie cards were 2010. He retired in 2021, and he really didn't play a lot of full seasons. Catching position is very, very tough on your body. And he had a few injuries as well, but he retired really, really young. A lot of Hall of Famers don't retire within 11 or 12 years. So a lot of controversy in the air, whether Posey or not should be in the Hall of Fame. And I hope this analysis kind of decides in your mind whether he belongs or not. And I'm going to start off using a general stat called WAR and also JAWS. And this is where kind of the controversy comes with Buster Posey, because there's multiple ways of actually analyzing WAR. So there's baseball reference WAR, there's also Fangraphs, and there's also another stat called WARP. I'm not going to be talking about WARP. I'm only be talking about baseball reference and Fangraphs WAR. And it also affects a stat called JAWS, which takes the 7 best years of WAR, does some calculations, and it also provides a number. So a stat like JAWS promotes like the top 7 years. It doesn't matter if a player had 20 years or not in their career. They just look at the highlights of what he's done during those best 7 seasons. Whereas WAR accumulates over time. The more you play, assuming that you're above a positive WAR, because you can also have a negative WAR, you're just going to keep on accumulating that stat. But here's where the controversy comes down to. Baseball reference WAR, he doesn't fit the profile of a Hall of Famer. He's actually quite low. So I have it up here on my screen. And for his baseball reference WAR, he's at 40.7. So the baseball average WAR is 44, which is much lower than a Hall of Famer in that perspective. But then you go into Fangraphs and he has a 57.6 WAR. And it's a 13 WAR difference, which is pretty big for a career that was so short. And a lot of people use baseball reference just to look at the data perspective. People looking at the 44.9 and go, oh, he should not be a Hall of Famer. But then you have people looking at Fangraphs and see 57.6 and think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, on the JAWS perspective, same thing happens. So his F JAWS, which is for Fangraphs JAWS, he's at 52.7. And then for baseball reference JAWS, which is our JAWS, 40.7. So again, about a 12 difference on that one. Exactly 12. So why do these two sites have complete different ways of analyzing WAR? Well, it really goes down to his framing metrics. So what Fangraphs does is they take in framing into their WAR calculations. And why I really don't like that, I mean, I'm kind of splitting the fence between liking it and not liking it, because now you can't go back and analyze players from different decades. So they have some data on framing, and it's 2 different methods. So I have this over here on my screen. They used Baseball Prospectus for framing from catchers from 1988 to 2007. And then they have their own metric on there, which is FG Fram, FRAM, which they use for 2008 onwards. So they don't really calculate the WAR for catchers before 1988 properly. Now, Baseball Reference does not actually include this defensive metric in there. And that's why it's more of an offensive based stat, or a WAR is more offensive based for catchers rather than Fangraphs, which really include defense on that side of things. So 13 WAR difference between the two sites can be a little bit complicated. And I know if this sounds complicated, it is. Just a TLDR, Fangraph WAR includes framing metrics, baseball WAR does not, or baseball reference WAR does not. So why was Buster Posey worth 13 extra WAR in comparison with his framing metrics? Well, if you can get an extra called strike outside the zone, it can save you runs over time. And based off of this, I have this on this sheet right over here. It's estimated that he won 13 games in 129 runs just based off of his framing. So that 13 games gets added to his WAR calculation, and that's kind of the major difference between the two sites. So WAR, again, kind of complicated for Posey. One site says he's a Hall of Famer. Other site says he's not a Hall of Famer. And you can take a look at it all-time rankings as well. Fangraphs, using that metric of WAR, he's in 7th place of all time. And if you use Baseball Reference, he's in 16th place. Big difference. Now, award-wise, Posey did win an MVP award. And I take this as a grain of salt, but there's been 12 catchers that won MVP awards. Only 7 are in Cooperstown currently. So you can't just look at the MVP award and say, Posey deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Catchers really don't win MVPs. There's been other catchers. There's other catchers that won multiple MVPs as well, such as Yogi Berra. The one thing about Posey's candidacy that is going to hurt him the most is the counting stats. A lot of older people that vote look purely at stats like hits and home runs. And Posey really doesn't do a great job doing that with his career. He wasn't really an offensive catcher, effective, because he really didn't play that long in injury concerns. So Posey only has 1,500 hits and he has 158 home runs. That 1,500 number is important because since the expansion era of baseball, which was 1961, there has been zero players that have made the Hall of Fame that had less than 2,000 hits. And people love their numbers with the Baseball Hall of Fame. If you look at a player like Fred McGriff has 493 home runs during the steroid era. He's not in the Hall of Fame. 7 short of 500. You think 7 short should make the Hall of Fame? I think it should. We're talking 500 short of that 2,000 number for position players. Really, really big difference there. And this goes back all the way from 1961. No one has been elected. So we're talking about 60 years of Baseball Hall of Fame inductees. Posey is going to have to break that barrier. It's going to be really tough. I see a lot of people not voting for him just because of that side of things. However, because he had a short career and was actually kind of good as a catcher behind the plate hitting, his OPS plus is really, really good. And all-time catcher-wise, so Posey has a career 129 OPS plus. That's actually tied for third place with Cochrane and Ewing. So first place is Mike Piazza. Second place is Tenas. I don't know the name. I'm not too familiar with that, but he's actually third place overall in OPS plus. If you don't know what OPS plus is, pretty much takes your on-base percentage, slugging percentage, takes in fact ballparks and also what's happening in the year and averages it around 100. So having a career 129 is really good because the average is going to be 100, 129 over that. Again, if he had a longer career, his OPS plus would go down because players don't perform as well when they get in their upper 30s. So having a short career does benefit that stat, but it's another thing to compare with those counting stats. He did have a high OPS plus, but doesn't really have the numbers. And that's a debate we're going to see a lot more coming into the Hall of Fame in the future, especially as more analytical minds are going to be voting on the ballots. Now, one of the things that people always talk about with Posey is his Hall of Fame career because of the playoffs. And Posey won 3 World Series rings. Really, really good, especially in this era of baseball. But there's other players that have won much more rings that aren't in the Hall of Fame. So, for example, Hank Bauer played with the Yankees and won 7. That's right, 7 rings and did not make the Hall of Fame. So having 3 rings is good. It definitely helps his Hall of Fame resume, but it's not the all end. There's much more to a player's profile than winning a World Series or even 3 World Series. But I also want to talk about how he actually performed in the World Series and also taking a look at the Giants, as I alluded to a little bit earlier. In the World Series, Posey didn't actually do that well. He batted 230 in the World Series and he batted 188 in the NLCS. So it wasn't the best during those series. Obviously, captain of the team, still did really well. But now let's take a look at the team in general from 2010 to 2016. If you look at all the different players, the best performing player by far is Posey by WAR. So if people want to elect one player for this dynasty in the Hall of Fame, Posey is that guy. Bumgarner unfortunately started performing bad in recent years. He looked like he was on the Hall of Fame trajectory. But sometimes the tough part about a pitcher, they sometimes blow out their arm and they just can't perform at the same level they once were. So Bumgarner isn't there. People think about Lincecum, but his stats are not there as well. He had a very, very short career, even shorter than Buster Posey. Sure, he won, I believe, 2 Cy Young awards, but just not going to do it.
I do have a few questions before you move on. So 3 World Series, those are all with the same team, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So he didn't move on to a different team and then win a World Series and have a big impact there. So that to me, it's not disregarding 3 World Series rings, but still, if he had done it with a different team, like 1-2 with the Giants and went to a different team and then caused them or helped them win a ring, that would be huge for me. Also, my second question is why did he retire? Is it because he's just old? Is injuries, or did he just want to go out on top?
I think it was kind of going out on top. I know he's been injured a lot in his career, and obviously we don't have all the medical records to really know, but he had a pretty good 2021 if you look at based off of other career years. So he's one of those players, I guess, just wanted to walk away while at the top of his game.
And then the third thing, 500 hits lower than 2,000. That's 1/4. It's 25%. So that means his framing would have to be pretty good. His defense would have to be pretty good to make up for that lack of offense. And I'm sure you're about to get into that.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the framing, how he technically saved or he won 13 games because of his framing, and it was the total amount of runs. It was, let me see over here again, 129 runs that were saved based off of their metrics. So it's a big factor for catchers. But I'm going to talk a little bit some of his other defensive metrics and why he only has 1 Gold Glove award.
When you say 13 games, to me that doesn't sound like a lot when you're playing 162. Is it 13 postseason games? Or
no. So how WAR is calculated, it's wins above replacement. That's how many wins a player provides for a team. So if you have a player on your team, your expected win count for the year changes based off a player's WAR. So 13 is actually a lot, seeing that the average Hall of Famer across the board is like about a 65 WAR player. So you're at 1/5 of the average Hall of Famer just based off of his framing alone.
Okay.
Catchers are a little bit different because, and historically, they don't have a lot of stats to measure how good they were defensively. And that's why I'm on the edge with the Fangraphs and how they added in catcher framing, because now you can't really compare a catcher in the 1920s or 30s or 40s or 50s or another era to today, because they didn't have all the advanced stats. They didn't have the option to see, oh, this player is a really good framer. And now they're missing that aspect of WAR and their total calculation. So now someone can be like, oh, Yogi Berra only has X amount of WAR compared to Buster Posey or a Joe Mauer or Yadier Molina. But the issue is there's no framing WAR calculated for that player. So now taking a look at defensive wise, talked obviously about the framing. One other really critical aspect of a catcher is throwing out batters, because you don't want to have people stealing on you. They don't want to go from first to second to third. RBI single gets that runner in. So across the board, league-wide average 29% of catcher, or 29% throwout percentage. Buster Posey had a 33%. Above average, which is good. But then you look at the top end of the spectrum, which is Yadier Molina. Yadier Molina is a unicorn. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but he has a 40% throwout rate. So 7% is a big difference between the best catcher in the National League and Buster Posey. And I want to look historically as well, look at some other catchers. So Roy Campanella, I didn't even know this, had a 57.4% throwout rate. Really incredible on that one. I did not know he had that good of a cannon. Ivan Rodriguez, 46%, and Thurman Munson, which we're going to talk about at the very end of this episode, is a 44%. So looking at some other Hall of Famers, he is low. He is slightly above average right now, but just not at that elite level like Yadier Molina or some of these other Hall of Famers. But I want to talk about Yadier Molina. Yadier Molina is probably the reason why Buster Posey doesn't have as many Gold Gloves as he should. Yadier Molina has been the best catcher in the game since probably 2004. But on top of that, he's been the best defensive player ever in MLB history. I was watching a Baseball Bits episode, and Fangraphs also was talking about Yadier Molina, where defensive-wise, the stats show he's been the best. He's been better than Brooks Robinson. He's been better than Ozzie Smith. So when you're competing against the best defensive player in MLB history, it's really tough to win Gold Gloves. And that unfortunately hurts Posey's profile a little bit as a catcher. But he's only won one Gold Glove award. If Yadier Molina wasn't there, how many would he have potentially won? Other two things too with defensive wise, obviously catchers call the game for their pitchers. Posey caught 3 different no-hitters, which is third most in MLB history. And while Posey was behind the plate, Giants pitchers had a 10% less ERA than another backup catcher that throughout his career. So, obviously knew how to call pretty well, and his defense definitely saved some runs on that side of things. So what do I think about Posey? If you look at him from the traditional Hall of Fame lens, if you only look at him from Baseball Reference, he's not a Hall of Famer. But if you look at it from the Fangraph side of things, you look at what he's accomplished for his team, you might be able to make the Hall of Fame. But the big thing that's going to always loom over him is that 1,500 hits, because there's a lot of people that will not vote for him just because of that. And for that reason, I think he's going to be a later Hall of Fame pick, maybe between his 5th and 10th ballot, or a Veterans Committee choice. I don't think he's going to be a first ballot lock Hall of Famer like a lot of people are saying online. I also don't think he won't make the Hall of Fame like other people are saying. He's the face of a dynasty in baseball from 2010 to, I think, 2016. Who else are you going to elect in the Hall of Fame from that side of things? Fangraphs, how they've included the catcher framing metrics, and he kind of got stuck behind Molina. He couldn't really do anything about that. And I think if he prolonged his career a few years, he would have hit 2,000 hits. I don't really like what ifs with baseball, but that's just one of those that happened with Posey. Unfortunately, he retired really, really young. But I want to also bring up 2 other catchers just to show you that Posey really isn't special in this perspective. So first one I want to say is Thurman Munson. Thurman Munson is not in the Hall of Fame. He was the Yankee captain, won 2 World Series championships with them. Very similar profile. So Munson had 7 All-Star games, just like Buster Posey did, had 46 Baseball Reference WAR, which is higher. He had 113 home runs, a little bit lower, 1558 hits, a little bit higher, 116 OPS plus, which is a little lower, but he also had 3 Gold Gloves, also won a Rookie of the Year. Munson died in a plane crash. He couldn't prolong his career. Very, very tragic, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. Has a better profile altogether than Buster Posey. So hard to say if Thurman Munson's not in the Hall of Fame, why are we expecting Buster Posey to make the Hall of Fame? The other player I want to talk about is Ted Simmons. Ted Simmons was a really, really great catcher offensive wise. He had 8 All-Star games, 50 Baseball Reference WAR, 248 home runs, about 2,500 hits, and at 118 OPS plus. He just got elected in 2019. His rookie card is all the way in 1971. So it just shows you how long it took him to make the Hall of Fame. And it was a Veterans Committee. Catchers don't really fare well that much in voting. It's a very, very tough position. People don't fully understand all the metrics behind it. But Posey will make the Hall of Fame one day. He's not a first ballot, most likely a Veterans Committee choice.
Cool. So I have to ask you, when I talked about Adley Rushman, and I know he hasn't even started his career, and you said you stay away from catchers, but for a guy who his career's over, you've seen everything. Do you feel comfortable still buying a catcher's cards?
I'm gonna load up Market Movers here so you guys can see what it looks like since he announced his retirement. Market Movers, you can see Posey prices as soon as he announced his retirement. So this one over here, which is the Topps 2010 base PSA 10, also has Stanton and Strasburg in that class for the 2010 rookies. But you can see it was hovering about $220, which is a decent chunk of change, and spiked all the way to $340 just because of the hype of his retirement. Next card over here is the Bowman Platinum, which I think is a little too expensive. It's kind of a lower end brand, $160 over here, all the way to $200. Then you have over here your Bowman Draft has been going down as well. But you can see the spike. I mean, if you're getting $300 for a PSA 10 of Buster Posey as a catcher, my opinion, sell. There's like Yadier Molina and Joe Mauer. So if you look up Yadier Molina, load up some of his stuff. Actually, won't load up that one. So you guys can see Yadier Molina as well, one of the best catchers in the game. Defensive wise, obviously the best, but you can see his card is spiked from $316 to about $600 right there, $750. Obviously offseason, so it's going to go down a little bit, but he's been going up quite a bit. And then you look at Joe Mauer as well. Since he retired, who I think is actually pretty undervalued based off of statistics, much better offensive catcher than Posey. Also has an MVP award, I believe. But you can see as a PSA 9 over the last 365 days, this actually has been trending down quite a bit. People just don't remember him. 162 in March, and today it's at $81, then $89. And this is a Chrome rookie, not a base top. So if you're looking for a catcher, if instead of buying into Adley, I'd be buying into Joe Mauer Chromes. I mean, a PSA 9 here at $80. If you look at a PSA 10, bit higher, but much better catcher overall.
And if you guys want to check out Market Movers, there should be a link in the description. You can use a code Moneyball to get 20% off. Yeah, so if you guys like this episode, just focusing on one player, you can let us know in the comment section. If you like us to look at a broader scale of cards or leagues, you can let us know that as well. So we will catch you guys next week on the next episode of Moneyball.